Well, Doctor WHeasel, that was certainly a breakfast I'd sooner forget. I'm not sure who arranges entities' hotel bookings, but I am going to have serious words with them when we get back to HQ.
Yeah, I hear you, Advick. I swear those sausages were 50% wood shavings. I know this is 1970s Britain, but come on! Surely things weren't this dire?
I don't know you're asking me. I'm from another planet, Doctor. Anyway, where does our investigation of these self-driving vehicle rumours begin, then?
Difficult to say, Advick, old chum. The briggy wasn't too clear whereabouts in Rotherfield we should look, and the police reports are from all over the shop.
Maybe we ought to buy a city map and use pins and string to plot out the sightings.
That sounds a bit basic. I was thinking I'll just check the morning papers online and see where the most recent incident was.
1978, Doctor WHeasel. The internet won't be a public service for a couple of decades yet. Stop trying to cause a causal crisis.
Primitive backwater time zone. Grublucks. Okay, what's the late 70s equivalent of online newspapers?
Printed newspapers. Although if I know local journalism, they'll all be utterly obsessed with giant vegetables, parking costs, and people pointing at something that's mildly disappointed them in some manner.
Oh, appear in them much, did you?
Get stuffed, Doctor. What about trying the local radio station?
Local radio? Seriously? That's where journalistic talent goes to die, Goose. But needs must when the devil drives, I suppose.
Actually, I do know of a place which gathers all regional information into one easily accessible location and has helpful, dedicated staff who can help us with our investigation.
I've told you before, Advick, we can't go to the cops. We are trying to stay undercover rather than alarming the locals, in case it's all a wild goose chase. Oh, no offence.
I wasn't talking about the police, Doctor. I was thinking about heading over to the Central Public Library and having a chat with the staff while you search their newspaper archives.
Me? In a library? With librarians? No. No. No!
Way up north in the former industrial mecca of Rotherfield, vehicles have reportedly been coming to life and driving on their own. Thankfully, the oddly earthbound and sometime entity scientific advisor, Doctor WHeasel, along with his summer intern, Advick Goose, have been assigned to investigate the verisimilitude of these vehicular visitations in Doctor WHeasel and the Triumph of Steel, Part 2.
Ah, yes. This is a public library. Slightly musty smell, oddly dressed people lurking in the stacks, and a general miasma of despair.
I said the same thing about the newsagents and church we walked into by mistake earlier.
It's an easy mistake to make. Ah, there's a librarian. Oi, you in the bright nylon twin set ensemble. We need someone to...
Could you please moderate your tone, sir?
You what, love?
We're in a library, Doctor. They expect you to keep quiet here.
How can I be quiet and ask a question, then?
Shush!
Keep your pince nez on, missus. I'll be with you in a minute.
If you need to speak, then do it softly, like I'm doing.
Well, you'd think someone would have mentioned it sooner.
I tried on the walk over, but you weren't interested in listening.
Shush! Gentlemen, if neither of you can observe the library's rules, I will have to ask you to leave.
Oh, Lummy, sorry.
And for your future information, our regulations are clearly displayed by the door. Perhaps you might care to read them, preferably sooner rather than later. I'm afraid, though, the Job Seekers Club doesn't meet until Thursday afternoon, so perhaps if you two were to come back then...
Ah! Cheek!
Shh! Quietly, Doctor.
I'll have you know, madam, I'm a fully employed member of a super secret... I mean, civil servant working for the Ministry of Eggs, which means I've lots of friends in high places. Although, the job's not all it's cracked up to be. Ha ha!
What my idiot friend means is we'd like to look at your newspaper archive, we may. We're especially interested in reports about self-mobile cars and the like.
Why? What's your interest? We don't like nosy nebbies in Rotherfield.
It's purely professional, my dear, I can assure you. You'll see, we're here to investigate these sightings.
Isn't that rather a job for the police?
I think this might be a little beyond their ken.
Or even their Barbie. But just between us, the government has had some concerns and sent me to establish if there's any truth to these rumours.
That's good news. We're all a bit jittery around here. There was a sighting only 2 streets away last night, and some poor woman was hospitalised. I heard on the radio this morning she was in a critical condition. Poor thing.
Great Scott! That's terrible news. Which street?
Follybrook Lane. It's the second turning on the left as you head into town from here.
Well, Advick, colour me a changed time weasel. Libraries are helpful. It's a shame they'll all be turned to homeless shelters in 50 years.
Time!
You really ought to see Dr. Gilbert about that cough, Advick. It's probably from all the pollution in this time zone. Look, he's tying my jacket a funny colour.
50 years. Time zone? I'm sorry.
Don't you worry about it, young lady. You'll be long dead by then. Come along, Advick. The game's afoot. Well, wheeled, I guess. I suppose this must be the place then, Advick.
What gave it away? The area surrounded by police cones? The skid marks on the road? Or that constable across the road keeping a beady eye on everyone?
Well, yes, but mainly it's because of this metallic fragment in the gutter. Recently manufactured part of a 3-cylinder motorbike engine. Local construction, I'd say, as well, given the background radiation readings.
Radiation? Where's the nearest chemist? I need some iodine. Stat!
Cool your jets, Goose. Background radiation's everywhere. And if you've got the right kind of equipment, like the sonic nail file here, you can pretty much read it like a fingerprint. And my readings are telling me this thing fell off a motorbike made in Rotherfield this year.
That's hardly a stunning revelation, Doctor. There must be countless locally manufactured bikes on the city's roads, and bits are bound to fall off. They are made in Britain, after all.
Sure, but not many of them have flecks of blood on them. Nor are they usually resonating with a coherent energy matrix.
Oh my! Does that mean this could have fallen through a time rift after all? A self-driving motorbike from the future? Gosh, what could have caused that to happen?
As usual, Advick, you've jumped to entirely the wrong conclusion. This isn't showing any signs of temporal or chronal shifting. The matrix is... well, I don't want to alarm you.
Every time you say you don't want to alarm me, I panic! It's almost a Pavlovian reflex.
Wipe the foam off your beak, Advick. What I'm trying to say is elements of this vehicle have been affected by something not of this world.
Hey, you, with the fuzzy snout, what the hell do you think you're doing in my manor?
I'm sorry, come again. Oh!
Speak when you're spoken to, sonny Jim, and we'll get along like an house on fire.
Look here, if anyone's going to manhandle my companion, it's going to be me, matey. So why don't you let Advick down and we'll all have a nice civil conversation. And perhaps we can give you a wallet or something?
What the hell do you take me for, fuzzface? Some sort of backstreet scrot out to make a few pennies with daylight mugging?
Manners do rather maketh them...
Shut it, Captain Beaky.
Shutting up.
And as for your insinuations, you frilly ponce, I'm not a mugger.
Right, okay, so you'll prefer to be called what? A footpad? A currency transferal specialist?
You're a right spanner and no mistake, I'm no villain, mate, far from it.
In that case, and I hasten to add I'm not sure I want to ask this actual question, but what are you?
I'm Detective Inspector John, the copper in charge of this investigation, and you two miscreants are flaming nicked.
And Advick Goose wiggle free of the long and rather strangling arm of the law. Will Doctor WHeasel be able to offer a credible defence down at the station? Or can Inspector Jaunt be reasonable about all this and chat it out over tea and biscuits? Ho ho! If you thought it was the latter, you've clearly never watched any cop shows from the 1970s, and had better tune in next time to find out just how steep the stairs are facing our heroic duo in Doctor WHeasel and the Triumph of Steel, Part 3!
Doctor WHeasel is a Weasel Teleaudio Enterprises production, featuring Randolph Weasley, Doctor WHeasel, Coonton Goose, Advick Goose, Melissa Stanton as the librarian, and Fraser Marshall as D.I. Jones.